As you can see, it sounds like a pervy teddy bear.
Love it.
I warn people sometimes because generally I actually have had like one or two guests like jump because I haven't warned them, hit enter, and it then like does that. And yeah, I don't want to scare people or anything. So I was like, hey, warning, you're about to get spied on for the next 40 minutes.
Yeah, I'll be careful which government secrets I spill.
Yeah, that'd be wise, very wise. Okay, so I'm ready to go when you are.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Tiger Nexus Podcast, a place where you'll find interviews with content creators and geeks alike. Your host, Ty Tiger, has delved upon the Nexus and found interesting content creators and geeks of all fandoms. This podcast is connected to the Zero Hero Network. And now we dive in with another episode!
Hello everybody, my name is Ty Tiger and welcome to the Tiger Nexus podcast, and today I have a very unique guest, a type of guest I actually don't think I've ever had before, and I'm very excited. And personally, I haven't actually dived in and done much research because I want to learn here right now with everyone listening. So today I have the creator of a trading card game called Flawed, and I have Ken. Hello Ken, how are you, bro?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited to talk about the thing that I made, that I love, that I spend every day on. So yeah, super hype.
That's what this podcast is for, bro. I interview content creators of all different types of format, and I've never had anyone that's made something like you've done, and I'm really interested. I'm really invested in this, and I've actually been really looking forward to this interview. We've spoken a couple times, and you messaged me a little while ago going, hey, I can definitely do, this week, can we set up a episode? I was psyched. I was so psyched, bro. I'm
awesome.
excited. So can you kind of give us, as much detail as you wish to give, what is the Flawed trading card game?
Yeah, so I guess we'll start, because if we're gonna really dig in, I'll start with kind of the elevator's pitch version of it. Okay, this is what I give to brand new people when they walk up at our conventions or our events. The game was titled Flawed specifically because we designed our cards to be flawed from the start. We use a system, and it's easier to show than it is to say, but I'll try to say anyway. We use a system where we take a cardboard trading card like you're used to from any game you've seen of all time, and a PVC component, and we layer them together, and then we sleeve those together in your typical, deck sleeve, like the type of thing that you'd use on, again, any trading card game that you've seen in the past, same type of materials. But when you sleeve them together, that PVC piece is creating modifications to the card that you put it over top of. So the cardboard piece is literally flawed. It is kind of an incomplete version of itself. And then when you put the PVC piece on top of it, you have kind of personalized it. You've created your version of that card, and you're going to do that for the entire deck, right? You're making big decisions while you're designing your deck. You're turning the knobs. You're fine tuning it to be kind of your personal expression of a concept. And then your opponent does the same thing. And when you sit down and you start battling, the interactions and the sort of like curveballs and the unique moments just come, one after the next, because every single card had a little bit of your personal design on it, right? I left the door open to let the players kind of finish that space.
I really like that. I think that's really cool. It has kind of like a storytelling sort of, OC type element to it. And personally, I love that.
Yeah, we have, you see it time and time again. I've been working on the project about 6 years now. Our first set released last year, so there was massive labor getting it to that point. But even after 6 years, I still have players come up to me and say, hey, what about this card plus this PVC? When I put these together, like look how cool this is. And it's something that I've never seen. One of the things that I try to be very forward-facing with is, so the very first set plus the very first, that we call them essences, the PVC, the legal combinations of cardboard plus plastic in just the first release is about 7,000 combinations. And I tell people, I've not played them all. Not close. I probably haven't played half of them, because it's just such a massive space that, like, as the designer, I can't necessarily put the time into playing 7,000 different cards, all in decks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's better for me to understand, like, the broad strokes, the big movements of the game, and and create a space that's fun to play in, without grinding down on every single game piece,
Honestly, I really like the fact that you are the person who created this, and you yourself haven't even managed to do all the combinations that you possibly could do. If that alone, it just speaks wonders. You've made something so big in volume, in content, in multiple different ways that as the creator himself, you physically haven't been able to do that, which is just great. That just, that allows you, like you said, you've had people come up to you and say, hey, look, this is the combination I've done, and you've been surprised. That allows you to even be surprised, which is just fantastic, and also allows you to bond with fans of your trading card game, because, they get to come up to you and go, hey, have you seen this combination before? And you get to have that, interaction with people.
Yeah, and that's, we've got a couple little local pockets of players that are starting to prop up across the country, and we've got some stores involved, and we've got a big tournament coming up in Ohio, and we tour and do different conventions. There's a lot of different ways for me to interact with the people. We've got a Discord with hundreds of members in it, and it's really cool. Exactly what you just said, to see that development of the player base and the way that different people interact. The folks who I interact with often, I can even I learned their tendencies. It's like, oh, of course you would, build your deck like that. Like that's what type of player you are. That's the type of essence you go for. That's the type of color you play. And everybody gets that, that's sort of that story that they get to tell and that expression they get to use. And it's got a really cool component in that sense, because it touches the entire spectrum of player base. Somebody who wants to be really casual and make something really fun and really weird and have that really high level of self-expression. There's no game like it. You can do more stuff to your deck. You can create your personalized deck more than any other game. Take it all the way to the other end of the spectrum, and you've got the most hyper competitive, I've got to win every game. That player is able to make those tiny adjustments and those razor decisions, and my last set of playtesting, having essence X wasn't really working. Let me swap it out for Y, and it touches everybody.
Yeah, man. I love the idea of, because games like, let's use Yu-Gi-Oh here for a second, because that's one game that trading card game that everyone more or less knows. Yes, you can personalize your deck, but there's a limit, if that makes sense. There's a limitation to what sort of cards you can play, and does this card work well with this card, and etc. etc. And that's how the people who made the good card trading card game, that's how they wanted it to be. But the way that you've gone down is because it's personal. Like you said, there's the competitive side of things, but then also that allows someone to, this is going to sound odd, but in a way, kind of express themselves through their deck, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And the craziest part about it is, and I won't say this is always true, but the way that those two ends of the spectrum interact is also interesting. Because if I've got a very competitive player who has said, hey, the decks that I've been playing against for the next big tournament, a lot of people have been playing a suite of units that all have 4 HP. So when I customize my removal spell, I'm going to make sure that it can deal 4 damage, so I can do that 1-for-1 exchange. And then you've got a casual player that says, well, I've just made all mine with 3 HP, so good job wasting your optimization. That, right? This random casual player created a deck that doesn't have that same breakpoint, and now you're suffering because your other card isn't stronger, because I'm kind of getting into the weeds, but there's a lot of limitations on how you build your cards and which essences can go, on the different cards and stuff. So even a seemingly casual player can really surprise a tournament player, because it's I've created something that you didn't prepare for. You didn't build your deck to fight this, and because of these maybe awkward choices that I made, I'm creating a game state that's kind of hard for you to navigate, and I'm making this game difficult for you. I'm actually genuinely competing, even though I didn't show up to compete.
Yeah, see, again, I'm blown away by this. This is absolutely awesome. One thing I have seen is the artwork, and I think that's the one thing that kind of drew me to asking you to be on the podcast, because the artwork is really, really good. I really like what I've seen. It took me a little while to actually message you to see, because getting people on podcasts can be tricky sometimes. I don't know how people are going to respond and stuff. So I have seen some of the cards, and obviously at the time I didn't know how anything worked. I just liked the art style.
Sure.
What was the decision process to go with the specific art style you've gone for?
That's a great question. It's multifaceted for sure. I'm a bit of a boomer. I'm set in my ways. I like what I like, right? And I came up on the '90s, like the original like '90s cartoons, X-Men and some even the classics before that, He-Man, G.I. Joe, like some of that vibe has always resonated with me, and I always thought it was a really cool space. And I didn't think it get leaned into as much as maybe it should be in the gaming space. So that was kind of step one. Step two is, again, look at all the card games that are out there. A lot of them have one of a couple of different styles of artwork, right? You've got like a lot of anime representation. You've got a lot of like sort of almost photorealistic, high fantasy, sort of just generic, here's a dude with a sword stuff. And I think that those spaces have been overly explored. So I really wanted something that stuck out a little bit. And again, as a kid, I loved comic books. I loved a lot of those cartoons, and going for something that is clearly not photorealistic, but still has a lot of space to express, right? You can still see the characters. You still understand what's going on. You build recognition when you see a big armored Earth Knight. You know what you're looking at, and it's just a really cool space. And then honestly, the kind of final catalyst is even before I had really internalized and made all these decisions, just kind of looking at the accessibility, like finding comic book artists who are looking for work tends to be easier than finding like pseudo photorealistic artists that are looking for work, and etc. Like it feels like the culture around comic books is much more what's the word I'm looking for? It's much more keen to just say, hey, I'll jump in and work on this project for a week or two. I'll do a card or two for you, and then I'll go on and do my next thing. I'm going to work on this cover for this comic book, and then I'm going to go on and I'm going to do the lettering in these pages, and then and those artists just seem to be way more flexible. So that was like kind of the final, the three-pronged reasoning that kind of got me here is as an indie dev, I can't sit around waiting forever for an artist to come back with a photorealistic piece. I can't necessarily pay the rates that some of those types of artists are looking for. So there was a lot of factors that went into it, but once I realized that this market has just a lot of accessibility, it's really easy to build good relationships with these artists. And then once you build that relationship and you're saying, hey, okay, I need a character that like looks like this, and it's got to make sense inside of this trope, and it's got to be from this faction, and you build those relationships, and then they invest in the project and they start understanding what they're building. It's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, see, I like that because, what I've seen as well, I feel like the type of art that you've gone for allows you to be more flexible in, what you want to portray on each card, because, like, I've seen, I apologize, I don't remember the name, but it's a human, I want to say a human, I could be wrong, but it's a man who's, like, his hands are on fire, he's topless, his eyes are, like, almost, like, burning red or, like, an orangey color, and he's got, like, I'm slightly colorblind, I think they're, like, purple trousers on, or pants on, yeah, he, like, the way that he was designed, the shading in, like, his muscles and everything, he looked really intimidating, really cool, but then you've also got things, like, you had this, an older gentleman sat on like this rock of some kind. He's got a book in his hand.
Yeah.
And he looks solemn, and like the shading on him was fantastic. You can't really like, his entire torso and face are shaded in. He's got shadow on him is what I meant.
Yeah.
He's got like, and like the two pieces that they look in the same art form, sure, but like just they're completely different in their own respective ways.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the way that you've done your cards.
And
like each one is unique.
I know exactly which card you're talking about for that second one too. Off the top of my head, that's a character called Fablemonger, and he's supposed to be like a retired knight who's kind of given up on his not given up on his duties. He's outgrown them. He is older. But he's still, when you look at his statistics, he's a really low speed unit, but he's still really tough. He's got a lot of power, and his abilities are really, he's a presence, but he's maybe past his prime. And yeah, that card it's honestly one of my favorites in the entire set, and the artwork is part of that. I think it's a fantastic example.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of my favorite cards that I've seen, I do remember the name, is Cutthroat.
Oh, okay. Yes.
I really like the way that's drawn. It gave me Red Hood. It gave me Moon Knight. It gave me like assassin type vibes. The way that he's drawn is where you can see he's in mid dive, like he's about to tackle someone. He just looks absolutely like a boss, and that screamed at me. I was like, yes, this looks dope.
That is, and it's so funny that you're coming in with so little experience and you immediately latch on to probably the most ubiquitous card in the entire set. We have an entire community of people who walk around like joking about the fact that Cutthroat is, and then they fill in the blank, and they tend to use like game terms like, oh, Cutthroat, he's a stealth attacker, he's so strong for reason X, right? And then the next guy will be like, oh yeah, Cutthroat, and they'll reason Y, and they'll go down the list. And then it's just become a bit of a meme in our community, because then my younger brother actually plays, and he's got Cutthroat on his like cell phone like background, like his wallpaper, and he's just like, oh yeah, Cutthroat, it's even a cell phone wallpaper. Like the list just goes on, because it's such a strong card. It's one of the kind of like premier rares in the set. Like a lot of people have really flocked to it, and you can see why. Like combine the art and the fact that it is a very potent card to play in the game most of the time. Like it's you picked a great one to latch onto early.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for presentation, artwork, that type of thing. So when I saw this, a new trading card game kind of going around, I was like, hey, I want to see. And yeah, he's definitely one of the cards I was like, oh my god, that is so cool. So what's kind of like the process in creating these? Because you talked about the knight character that I mentioned, and like I said, I really like Cutthroat. So what's kind of like your process in creating these cards, these characters, inspirations, that type of thing?
Yeah, that's a huge question. You said we'll be 45 minutes, maybe a couple hours. I really just started with the game. I'm going to be honest, right? I didn't have a lot of motivation to tell a story. I didn't have a lot of motivation to build lore. I didn't have a lot of motivation to even create characters like unique expressions, unique characters, somebody with a name, somebody with a history, somebody with lore. I didn't start there at all. That was not my passion. So if you go back 6 years, I started with the game, and I said, okay, let's make the system. Let's make this card crafting system. We're going to have 6 different colors. What do those colors represent? Well, they represent 6 different regions of this continent that's at war. Okay, why are the colors different? Well, we've got this system of statistics that are modified by the essence. The essence sort of represents their true being, right? So one of the very early things that I latched onto is the idea that like you and your friend both might grow up in the fire faction territory, for instance, right? You might be trained to be soldiers. You're very regimented life. You've got a very militaristic view on things, but you and your friend, even though you're both in that same region, he might be faster than you. And in order to express that in the game, I can put a gray essence, which adds speed on the first card. And I can put like, okay, he's faster than me, but I'm stronger than him, right? I've got a red essence, which adds power on the second card. And now you've got, okay, 2 grunts, for instance, 2 low-level, military men in the fire army, but they have a little bit of themselves expressed on the statistics, right? And that was step 1, like the idea that you can make that the player can make unique individuals, right? You're making a card to be the way that you want it, and that's loaded with the idea of, not like when you play any other given game, like what are the odds that 2 soldiers in your army are exactly the same, right? It just wouldn't really make sense. And that was where it started. And then it spiraled from there, right? Once I started to understand where the expression of the 6 different factions came from, and I defined the sort of abilities better, and I started to build up these concepts, and you get, okay, the Earth faction has these like really noble like knights, and they're very steeped in like, a lot of loyalty and this sort of ritualistic type existence, and they have been paying homage to a missing king for 100 years, and the new king has just been found, and there's all this stuff. Like once we started packing all that in, it almost, it feeds itself, because now it's like, oh cool, I've got this concept of what an Earth faction looks like, and we already know what an Earth faction plays like in the game. Well, let's make a card that feels like this concept. Like, let's make a character who's a retired knight called Fablemonger, who's traveling outside of his land. So he's a multicolor card who is both green and yellow, and he's telling the story of, hey, we found our king. We actually this is a really big deal. I want to travel the entire continent and express this to everybody. And that's so it becomes cyclical at that point, and you just let it run, right? We've got 6 different factions. We've got 6 different, ideas going on. A lot of ideology, a lot of different reasons for conflict, a lot of different characters at play. We've got the epic units, which are literally the named characters in the story. You've got like Griffin, who is the king in the Earth faction. You've got Elvira, who's one of the council members in the Fire faction, and you just go from there. And it all stemmed from that core concept, though, right? I've made a game, I've made a system. Okay, now how do I make that system make sense?
Yeah, see, I love that. That is such a good way of thinking about it. Yes, okay, take away Pokemon, because Pokemon is different, because there's games, there's TV shows and all that stuff. But when it comes to certain trading card games, yeah, okay, they have their own lore and things. I don't think every single trading card game out there is as detailed as you described. And I love the fact that you've gone down this route, because, looking at the cards and, these again, really good artwork, knowing that there's a character behind, or a storyline at least behind each card, or, a connection of some kind, like you said, Fabemonger, he's not just some dude sat on a stone holding a book, that's not just it, there's more to it. And I feel like people who do become fans of the game, or at least are intrigued in the card game, if they do go down this rabbit hole that you've created, they're able to find out all this lore and everything. People like me, especially, I love backstories and I love storytelling, and I do audio dramas, so I'm a massive storyteller myself and things like this. I feel like a lot of people are going to gel to that, because you look at, again, I'll use Yu-Gi-Oh! You look at things like Blue Eyes White Dragon. It's one of the biggest cards known to man when it comes to trading cards. What's the lore behind it?
That's a great question. I can't answer.
Why is it blue-eyed? Why is it white? And why do we have a red eyes black dragon? Why? That's what I want to know. As a person who loves these cards, I love both dragons. I love the looks of them and everything. Why? That is my question all the time. And with your card game, I'm able to go, hey, why? And, okay, you may not have a direct answer for each and every single card, but you're going to be able to at least go, well, you see, and then give some form of, even if it's minute, you're able to give some form of detail. Yeah. And I think that's brilliant.
And I'll be honest, I almost probably could do every card, but you might get the same answer 2 or 3 times, right? There might be pockets of characters, or pockets of units, or pockets of lore that kind of go together so strongly that it's like, yeah, we have 5 cards that represent this idea, or we've got these 2 over here are really the before and after of the same story, or whatever, right? There's definitely a lot of it. There's a lot of it, and I'll be frank, the biggest, one of my biggest regrets up to today is that it's not really documented. I have done so much building it into the game, and I've put it in the artwork, and the abilities of the cards feed off of that lore, and everything is meant to kind of mesh together. And if you're really astute and you really dig deep and look at all the cards and figure out why this art looks like this, and you can see the stories, but they're not written down anywhere. I don't have an author. That's just one of the resources we don't really have yet. And it's something that I know a lot of people are super interested in. So, stay tuned. Hopefully in the future we can get it more concrete, but it is just in the game right now. And on one side, like I said, I regret that. On the other side, it's kind of nice though also, because it leaves space again for the individuals who are playing the game to be creative and understand their own, they can piece together and create their own story also, right? And that's a big part of the game is that individual experience. So for now, we're just going to hinge on that.
Yeah, and again, like you said, you're allowing the player to also kind of run their own thing, and I feel like this would work really well for those who are interested in D&D and that type of game as well. I feel like they better gel well with this card game.
It's true. I mean, when you sit down for a game of D&D, you've created your character from the ground up, right? You've made something personal, and I feel like building a Flawed deck is as much, if not more so, that experience where you're sitting down with 7,000 options for each of 50 different deck slots, the number of legal decks is insane. It's like we did the math on it, but I want to say it's a number with like 143 zeros is how many like decks you could build.
Jesus.
It's insane. Yeah, because
that is nuts.
It's nuts. And that's in one set, right? Like it's nuts. And that's just because you got 50 slots in the deck, 7,000 cards each, like, multiply it out. Like it's pretty crazy. But it is. It's a very personal expression, and even some of the most, like I said, dedicated players and the people who have been with me for a long time, when they're building a deck, it becomes a little bit more mechanical, because you're more so saying, hey, yeah, I want to express this, but I'm expressing it through my play style, right? Like, I want to play the mid-range deck, so how do I make this card fit in there? How do I make this card fit in there? How do I make this card fit in there? And you lose a little bit of the luster the more decks you build, but you're still always like fine-tuning and making those adjustments, and it's such an experience, like every single time. And I build decks constantly. Like, I can't stop. It's even after 6 years. And even though I've got, sets 1 through 6 in development, and I've seen all these cards and all these concepts, and I've got all this planning, I will still sit down with my set 1 stuff, lay it out on the table, and just build a new deck, once or twice a week.
That's great. I love that. I love the fact that you're still doing this. You're still so you said that you've been at this for 6 years, and you said that last year, you're able to make this all public. What's the process on actually, not the actual, designing the cards and stuff, but what's the process on actually creating a trading card game and getting it out to the public? Like, it took 5 years. How does one make a trading card game?
That's another great question. A huge process is the short answer, but it started, like I said, okay, so let's go all the way back 6 years ago. I started working on the origin story of the game is almost worth telling. I'll take just a moment. My wife and I met playing Magic about 16 years ago. We're both gamers through and through. This is what we do. This is what we love. The vast majority of our friends are from social circles playing games, etc. So go back 6 years, we weren't actually married yet. And when I proposed to her, which was about 7 or 8 years ago, this big conversation started up because, and I know this is such a personal thing, but it's worth telling. It really does show where everything came from. This conversation came up because she is a twin. She has one twin sister, and she goes, okay, my job is done. My maid of honor will be my twin sister. I am the oldest of 9 and have no easy choice when it comes to a best man, right? Not to mention, I don't even think I would necessarily select one of my brothers. I'm not super close with all of them, but maybe, right? Maybe. I've got friends that I've had for 20 and 25 years playing in these different card games and stuff. So she goes, how are we ever going to select from all of these candidates who could be your best man? And she and I talked about it, and we came to the conclusion we're going to hold a tournament at my bachelor's party, and the winner of the tournament gets to be my best man. I started to pass.
That's awesome, by the way. That is so cool.
So this information started to get out. I've started to hear from some friends. Again, I've played so many games under the sun at a very high level. I've been a world's competitor for Forceful. I've been on the Pro Tour for Magic. Star Wars Destiny, I played in multiple nationals, like Kaijudo, multiple nationals. Like I've played all these games. And I've got really good friends from many of them. So once word kind of got around that we were going to do this, I got a couple people asking me like, okay, that's great. We'll do a tournament, but what game will we play? Because clearly we can't just hold a Magic tournament and then invite all of my Forceful friends, right? Or whatever. And it was actually a friend of mine that I met on the Pro Tour in Hawaii who messaged me, and we had this exact conversation, and he just on a whim goes, well, the only way to make it fair is you should just create a game. And then everybody's starting from ground one. And I woke up the next day and started working on this. My LLC is called Best Man Gaming. That's we named it after this. My company is named after this interaction. And I just started designing. And that was step one. Okay, fast forward about 3 or 4 years. I've shown the game to a bunch of people. I've had playtest sessions. I've printed out, some really, really dumbed down, like terrible little cutout proxies and stuff. And every time I show it to somebody, they're just like, this is really good. You should work on this a little bit harder. And then you show it to the next group of people and they're like, this is really good. You should, you should take this more seriously. And it kept going until about 3 years ago, I would say. So maybe halfway in the game's life as of now. My wife said, listen, it's either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. Like we have to make the choice. If you're going to take this seriously, you need to start a business. You need to start your LLC so you actually have some way to make any money off of this. And you need to start a Patreon and let people follow your process. Let people be involved with you growing this thing and building this thing, and let them watch what you're doing. And we ended up starting that Patreon, and it was super successful. I had a legitimate amount of money coming in. Like, it wasn't, I wasn't getting rich off it at all. And every dollar went back into the game, but it was enough that I could get going. And step one in actually creating it, like having something tangible, something real, was hiring artists. And, we hired our first, maybe, I would say about 25 contracts, and there might have been 8 or 10 different artists that worked on it. And that was enough for us to build 2 demo decks. We ordered the demo decks from the Game Crafter. I got, I don't know, maybe 5 of each sent to me personally to just use and show people. And then we hosted that as something that people could buy on the Game Crafter. And we sold a few around the country. People started getting involved and they wanted to try it out. And then those demo decks carried us for the next year. We brought those to conventions. A big convention for us was MomoCon in Atlanta. That was actually where we started. That was kind of like our big breakout. Here's a game, check it out. We had a booth. People got to come and run demos. We were selling almost nothing. We had one promo card that we made that said like MomoCon 2022. And we sold like a couple $1,000s worth of promo cards just because people sat down, played the game, and they're like, oh, this is like the first card ever. We're like, yeah, it's the first card ever. And people just were buying them for $5 a piece. And that money then got us enough to do the next thing and then the next thing. And it just went from there. And then our first proper manufacturing, we looked around, and this was very challenging to actually find a manufacturer willing to work with somebody so small. But we got, I think 500 of each of those decks made. It might have been 1,000. I don't quite remember, but we got like 500 or 1,000 of each of those decks made. Next year at MomoCon, we were running the same demo with the same cards, but this time it was, hey, you can take the deck home with you. And again, sold them hand over fist. People were absolutely in love with it. This whole time we're continuing the process of acquiring new artwork, fleshing out the first set. And then fast forward to, let me make sure I get my dates right. This would have been the middle of 2023. We ran our Kickstarter for the first set, and we did all the things you'd expect. This was our first year going to Origins Game Fair, which is another humongous convention in Ohio. We actually ran that parallel to the convention. We crowdfunded a lot of money. I think we didn't quite reach 200% funded. I think we were about 160 or so. But it was enough, and we got the game manufactured. Everything was fulfilled last year, and there you go. That's where we are. That's the whole long process.
Dude, that is absolutely amazing, right? So one of my favorite questions to ask people when I interview them is spouses, if they're in a relationship or married or whatever, like, how does your spouse, supportive and stuff. But the fact that the origin story to your card game involves your spouse, I think that is just absolutely beautiful. I think that's amazing beyond words. Like, that's actually took me back a little bit. That's actually really sweet.
It's yeah, she couldn't be better. And you can tell everybody I said this, but she's beyond invested. She takes it personally when I make decisions about the game. She's like, what are you doing to our game? Right? Like, she's beyond invested. One of the funny things, like, so in 2024, I think she used every single one of her vacation days from her work to go to a Flawed event or a Flawed convention or a Flawed tournament or something. She didn't have a day off unless she was coming to one of my things and working my booth. So she is beyond invested.
That is one dedication, that is amazing. But yeah, that's just really sweet to hear, man. I love hearing when, such creative people like yourself, big content creators and stuff, but they say that their spouse is as dedicated or as supportive as they need. I really like hearing that. The world needs more positivity, and that is definitely a story to tell. That is awesome. That's really sweet. I like that a lot. The fact that this game isn't just an idea; it's rooted. To your life. It's literally it's rooted to not just memory, but something that will last, and that's awesome. I really like that.
Yeah, and rooted is such a. I love that you even chose that word because like we are like the definition of a grassroots company. Like I've personally put $0 into this game. I've not put any in, but I've also not paid myself $1. So I've worked for 6 years and I've made nothing. But I'm okay with that because it is purely a passion and it's purely it's for the community at this point. There are so many people who have put so much, either they're playtesters who have helped me out that way. There are Patreon supporters who help me out that way. People who have backed the Kickstarter, people who have attended our conventions. Like all of this player base is as fractured and as young as it is entirely their like support and their effort and their sort of like desire to see more that keeps us going to the next step because that's just how the company was built. Like the company was built on a dream. It's like, hey, can we actually make this game? Yeah, let's do it. Like let's subscribe to this guy's Patreon and like watch him make this thing. Let's buy this guy's demo deck and like take it home and play the same, 2 decks for a year basically. We had only those cards for like a year. But it's the players have made it all possible.
So, have you ever had any hiccups, any major issues, any moments where there was a shroud of darkness over the stream of yours?
A number, yes. I'll tell you a couple of them. I won't go into as much detail, but we had literally like at the 12th hour of manufacturing when we had made our orders for the Kickstarter, we had gone through and proofed literally everything. This is like maybe like not even we're shipping from overseas as well, so we've got freight to deal with and all this other stuff, and the due date for our stuff to arrive is around the corner, and I get a message from my rep with the manufacturer saying, hey, there was a mistake on the thickness of the PVC cards. When we initially quoted you, we had them at 0.08 or whatever, and they're actually 0.09. So when you stack up 300 of them, put them in a box, they don't fit. But we've already made the boxes.
Oh, damn. That. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And this is, like I said, 12th hour. Like it is literally the last thing that I haven't already seen like video proof of it existing. This is the last possible item is taking the PVC and putting it in the box. And he goes, what do you want me to do? He's like, if you need new boxes, we're going to take the blame on this because we had the error. We're not going to charge you anything for this. But if you need new boxes, this is going to be a 3-week delay or whatever, right? Other option, and he sends me a little video of them putting like, so the PVC, there's like 300 cards in the kit. I hadn't mentioned that yet, actually. The PVC is non-collectible. You just buy the kit on day one, and you have full customization immediately, which is one of the other things that we're really passionate about is not gatekeeping, the coolest part of the game. So the PVC, he sends this video, the little bricks of cards. There's like 6 of them. They've got like 50 cards in them each, right? And he opens up the box that they're supposed to go in, and he sticks like 5 of them in the box, kind of standing up, laterally across the box. And then he just takes the 6th one and sets it on top, closes the box, and it just closes like 80% of the way. And there's like a little, the top of the box is kind of hanging, if you will. But it's a 2-piece box, so it works. It actually does close. He's like, if we do this and then we vacuum wrap it or whatever, like nobody will ever know. And I'm like, you are correct. Nobody will ever know. Make it happen. And that was our solution. We actually packaged them and got them out. But it was one of those hiccups. It was one of those moments where I'm just like, oh, good God, this is going to cause so much delay. We were about to go to. This was 6 weeks or something before Origins, the humongous convention that we do like so much business at, and I was going to have no product and etc. It was really tragic, but we got the solution and we got it, so that was good.
So, are you like American based only, or do you distribute like across the world, or is that a plan of yours to make it so people could buy the game worldwide?
Yeah, that's so. Continuing down the vein of we are incredibly small, we are incredibly indie, we are incredibly grassroots. Right now, our capabilities limit us to being domestic US. That is really all we can do right now. But I have no reason to want to stop there, right? I'm more than happy to get as many people involved as possible. It's just the way that we're handling our orders right now and the type of structure that we have doesn't offer that at a cost that we can really get involved with. But it's if that could change in the next couple of months if things change, right? Like it's just a matter of what comes in is what can go out. You know, we really are working towards the bigger things, but it just takes so much time and so much effort and so much. I honestly think luck. I think it takes some luck too. I think, you know, I've shown this game to hundreds of people. I've played my 2 demo decks against one another thousands of times. I have had some of these conversations that you and I are having countless times over. And the saturation of people who experience our game at a convention, at an event, at a game store, at a whatever, wherever we're presenting it, people who experience it buy it. It just happens. Like, if somebody is into card games and they sit and play for 5 or 10 minutes, it is just like, I'm not trying to use hyperbole at all. It's 70, 80, 90% of people at any given event are like, yeah, I'll definitely get something. I'll take these 2 decks home. I'll buy some packs. I just want to be involved in this at all. It is such a good experience. It is so much fun. It's just, how do I get the right people in those spots? How do I get enough people in those spots, right? There's limits to what a team of our size can do.
Yeah, that's completely understandable, you know, and I feel like one big issue when it comes to people who want to do something like, you know, creating a comic book or trading card game, or hell, even running a podcast, you know, is patience. You need patience, you know, that's a big key factor. I know so many people who have started YouTube channels or Twitches or, you know, comic books or, you know, name it. I know someone who's tried doing it and they give up because, you know, they're only a year, maybe 18 months in, and they haven't got anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, it's a grind. You know, people don't understand that this is, you know, it's passion and it's patience are the 2 major things you need.
And I'll be 100% honest with you, and you hit it on the head. The passion is what does it. If this were my job, if I were depending on this for income, I would have been out of it years ago, right? It needed to be, for me at least, rooted in that concept, rooted in the idea that I'm making a thing because the people around me wanted me to make it, and the people around me are enjoying it, and that is the motivator, right? The any trajectory, any upward growth that my company has had has always come from the core idea of, I'm doing this because I'm really enjoying it, and the people who I'm making it for are really enjoying it, and whatever comes out in the end is what comes out in the end.
Yeah,
the money can't be the motivator right now because there's just not nearly enough of it.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I have 2 last questions for you. The first one being, what's kind of, you know, when it comes to creating your cards, do you release, you know, are you going down the route of you'll release a whole new pack at once so people get like a whole like bundle of cards? Are you doing it in smaller packs? So like maybe like when it comes to new cards, people can buy like 10 cards at once. You know, what's kind of like the future process of releasing new cards, new characters and stuff?
Yeah, so the first set is a TCG. It is collectible. The idea is that you've got, you know, commons and rares and epic card. You've got some excitement to opening the product. It still behaves close to like a Pokemon or a Magic in that sense. A lot of the things that we've done though is we've designed it to not be exploitative in the sense that like you have to spend so much money just to even be involved with the game. A couple of things, and I'll set these ground rules, and then I'll kind of go back to your answer. But the things that we focused on are, number one, the set size is actually incredibly small. We only have 146 cards in the first set, and that still offers you 7,000 game pieces because of our system. I don't have to sell you packs full of junk. I don't have to just stuff the packs with like random trash commons and cards that are only good in draft and etc. When you look at our 146 cards, every single one of them is completely viable to be played in a deck. They're all genuinely good cards. And as such, I've kind of built a system where I and it's a terrible from a business perspective, but I want the players to buy less and still be able to play the game. The second thing we did, and this is the one that I'm perhaps most proud of, is the epic characters. Like, for instance, I mentioned Griffin, the king from the Earth faction. Yep. That's the most rare card. Like, as far as like how often he shows up in a booster pack, the epic cards are the most rare to find. But when you build your deck, you're only limited to playing 1 copy of Griffin. So yeah, I need 3 cutthroats for my deck, but I only need 1 Griffin. So once I open my Griffin out of a booster pack, like, I'm good. I don't have to worry about chasing down another one. I don't have to put the money into collecting full play sets of the most rare cards. It's only one. So with those two factors in mind, we've created, I think, a space where you can get really excited about opening a booster pack and like getting a Cutthroat or getting a random epic, a Talia or whoever, one of these characters that you've seen somebody else play. But it's not this like, oh, I've got to go buy like 10 booster boxes and open all these up just to be able to build a deck, or chase down all these singles. It's a completely new kind of way to interact with a collectible, card game. That said, the first set had collectible cards in the booster packs. They were 24 in a box, 11 cards in a pack. And then you had the PVC, which again, the PVC is not collectible. You just buy it once. Boom. You have 3 copies of every essence. It's like 300 unique pieces in there. You're good to go. The second set's going to be pretty much the same. There are slightly more cards in it. We bumped the numbers up just a little bit. It's mostly commons to increase the set size very, very slightly. I think it's 158 or 160 this time. A little bit bigger of a set just to make the draft experience a little bit more enjoyable and give a little bit more variation when you're opening cards. But it's going to be the same idea. Booster packs are going to be 11 per pack, 24 per box. Your essence kit from set 1 is the same essence kit. You don't even have to repeat. That essence kit actually works with sets 1, 2, and 3. And then a second one will be released alongside set 4. So there is some, there's a shakeup coming, a couple years from now. But yeah, that's the best way to engage with the like collectability side of it. The other half, and this is probably a little bit more akin to what you're asking. When set 1 was released, we did not create a like pre-sorted, pre-constructed product that you can just buy. We had the demo decks already, which were a really good play experience for somebody just looking to open the box and play. But they technically were not like a tournament legal product because they were only 25 cards and a deck is supposed to be 50. So the demo deck was an awesome play experience, but there was nothing that like a player could just buy and automatically join a tournament. And we did that on purpose. We were actually we believed that because of that personal expression, because of the fact that building your deck is such a key part of the game, that I didn't want to do it for you. I didn't want to choose your 50 cards and choose your 50 essences for you. That felt like I was taking something away from you. But the market has demanded otherwise. We get that question at every event 100 times. Which of these can I just buy and join your event tomorrow? How do I play in your tournament tomorrow? And it's shown that we maybe overlooked how desperate people are just to open the box and play. So with the second release, we are going to have 2 decks that are 50 cards, 50 essences out of the box, and you can just shuffle up and play.
See, I respect that. I respect your process, making it so it is just accessible that way. Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. I'm not really into Magic. I don't know how they deal with their trading card collectability, but Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, it's an absolute ball ache. It's an absolute pain in the ass to build a deck that you wanna, money-wise, time, and all this is just, it's a hassle in itself, just making a deck that you are wanting to play. So yeah. I respect that a lot. My second question, and this will be my last question for you, is if you could give any piece of advice to someone out there who is kind of in a similar boat as you, they want to make their own trading card game or something on those lines, what piece of advice would you give that person?
I mean, I think we kind of already talked about it a little bit, but I'm thoroughly convinced that you've got to, and I think this goes for anything really, but you've got to have your mind in it for the right reason. You're not, at least not usually, going to come up with a trading card game and it's going to be the get rich quick type thing. It's a very saturated market right now. There's a new Kickstarter game every month. It's 1 in a million that you're the guy that said, hey, I'm going to make this game and I'm going to turn it out real quick and boom, my bank account is going to be erupting. So come at it with the right reason. Understand why you're doing it. If you're doing it because you've got free time and you just want to kill, go. If you're doing it because you've got an idea that you think is really good, go. If you're doing it because you've got people around you who want to be involved, and like any of these different motivators that can keep you going, even though you just see your hours and hours and hours and hours and hours just going away for no monetary return. It's because it is work. It is absolutely work. It takes so much time and so much effort that if you're looking for compensation, you're not going to stick with it. I don't think you're going to stick with it. And I think we kind of already commented on that, how, people quote unquote like start the grind, and a year later they're like, oh yeah, the grind wasn't worth it. I wasn't getting out of the grind what I wanted. Well, then you wanted the wrong thing, right? And I think that's my number one thing. And again, that probably goes for just about everything in life, right? Like, if you're going to go to school, if you're going to start a career, if you're going to start a business, if you're going to start a card game, have a secondary motivator. It can't just be that paycheck. You've got to have something driving you into that space. Other than that, I mean, I guess the other thing that I will say, and this one is more topical, we have so much success because of, I'm going to use this word, the gimmick of our game. The thing that we're doing is actually very unique. PVC has been used in a couple of trading card games in the past. PVC has been used in a number of board games, but you've never had a game where the PVC makes an impact directly on the card like this. You've never had a situation where I'm actually allowed to design my card the way that I want. That's never been part of really any game that's ever happened. So when you get a person in front of you at a convention, for instance, and I show them that first card and I say, our cards are literally flawed, and I pull them apart to show them that there are two pieces, that is a jaw-dropping moment time and time and time again. So having that hook, having that unique feature that makes your design stand out is really important. I don't think anybody wants to play, Pokemon 2 or Yu-Gi-Oh 2 or like if somebody wants to play Yu-Gi-Oh, they'll just go play Yu-Gi-Oh. They don't need another version of the same game, right? And I know we've seen games like that in the past, and I don't think that it's usually interesting enough to keep the player base going, right? You got to have something that's unique and exciting and brings the players to it.
Yeah, I like the advice. That's the gimmick thing, especially. I actually started playing a game today, a video game, and I'm sat there thinking to myself, God damn, this is just like Mega Man. It's no different to Mega Man. I may as well just play Mega Man.
Exactly. Exactly.
So there's no gimmick to it at all. So I understand the gimmick, and passion needs to be the forefront. When it comes to this podcast, my main passion is talking to people. I love getting to know people. I love content creators. I'm one myself. I don't just do this podcast. I love getting to know. I like diving into people's history and their content and why they do things and stuff like that. So yeah, I completely understand that one. Well, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to sit down with me and chatting with me about your card game. It sounds absolutely amazing. I followed the Facebook page. Like I said before talking to you, I did kind of keep away. I wanted to learn myself from you, but now that we've had this conversation, I will dive headfirst.
Yeah,
nice. Like I can now dive headfirst and check everything out and everything. If people who are listening want to find you and keep up to date on everything and all that stuff, social media wise, where can people find you?
I mean, we're on basically everything. I post most often on Instagram and Facebook. I don't know all of my handles off the top of my head. Perhaps I can send them to you and you can link them for me.
Yep.
But the generic social media space is really good. Our Discord is amazing. We've got some of the best mods and the best community you can imagine. The people in there are talking about the game all the time, figuring stuff out, and just generally excited every time a new person clicks join on that Discord. Like, everybody in there just loves the community, and that's a great place because we post all of our event announcements in there. We spoil all of our cards, etc. Like, that's a really good hub to just kind of get all things Flawed all at once. And again, I'll be happy to send you links for all of this.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll be leaving links that people can click on for sure. Well, thank you very much for like I said, spending your time. We said 45 minutes, we're almost at an hour. So I respect you for that, and I appreciate you for coming on and allowing me to dive into this amazing thing you've created.
Yeah, thanks for saying all that, and thanks for having me. I mean, it's like I said, I'm more than happy to talk about it. So you definitely giving me the opportunity was fantastic just to get in here and share my passion. Like I said, this is something I've been working on for 6 years. So the more people who can get exposure, all the better. I'm really confident about it, and I really think that it is just a matter of, you know, a person who's into games, a person who's into cards. When they see this, they love it. It's that simple.
Maybe like the end of the year, maybe beginning of next year, I can have you on again, and we can see kind of like how much things have progressed in, you know, the time frame.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Of course, please make sure you check out Flawed, the trading card game. Like I said, you know, I just ended up finding it. That's literally, it just appeared. Maybe it was meant to be. I don't know. But honestly, the artwork alone should rope you in. That's how I got roped in, was the artwork. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Of course, if you're listening to us on the podcast platforms, share and rate and all that stuff. If you've listened to us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Of course, I love you all. Roar of passion, everybody, and I shall see you guys in the next one.
What you have just listened to is a product created by the Three Ranger Bros Studio.
Hosted by three cosplaying fathers who
happen to be massive geeks of all sorts of fandoms.
They are Mark, the Red Cornish Ranger,
Cosplay Dude 637,
and Ty Tiger.
The studio covers different types of YouTube videos, TikToks, podcasts, and live streams.
If you wish to find out who cosplays who, the YouTube channels, the TikTok accounts, and the podcasts, and all of the other social media platforms,
please go to the 3rangerbrostudios.com.